Welcome to the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel, your encyclopedia. For the college basketball season and beyond, it is Friday, February 27th. We are 2 days away from March. How about that? So we have a fun bracket stat today. We're going to talk about the national championship contenders based on historic stats. So these are not just opinionated. These are based on historic trends. We're going to talk about, for example, like 21 out of 22 of these teams that have this in common are, won the national championship. So you have to have this criteria to win the national championship. We did a show on this about 3 weeks ago. Obviously, things have changed since then, as a lot of the numbers are still changing. We're going to redo this show once Selection Sunday comes out, because these stats are all going to be based on pre-tournament, at the end of the regular season, pre-tournament, going into the tournament, so even after these conference tournaments. So we're going to talk about 5 stats today. A lot of people know about the Week 12 AP Poll one. That will be on here. That's the flukiest one, in my opinion. The rest of them a lot of them are based on KenPom stats, and we have a few other fun ones. So we're going to dive right into it. Before we do, just be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the show, turn on post notifications so you stay up to date on the college basketball season and beyond. Follow us on Instagram, where we post more fun stuff like this, at Bracket Science with 2 S's, and check out our website, bracketscience.weebly.com. We have all our bracket stats on there. We have fun coaching carousel stuff on there. Without further ado, let's dive into it. So this is going to be the most broad one. Don't panic yet. I know there's a lot of teams on here. We're actually going to cut it down to a total of 6, which is more than we had last year. I'll talk about that a little bit. But this is kind of just the baseline criteria right here. So every national champion has been inside the top 57 in adjusted offensive efficiency and top 44 in adjusted defensive efficiency. Like I said, pre-tournament via KenPom. This is in all of the years of the KenPom algorithm. It started in 1997. So these are all the teams that fit this. I'll label them quickly, get through this, and then we'll start cutting it down a little more. Illinois, these are just ranked in order by offensive efficiency, by the way. So just made it easier to, kind of label them. Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Texas Tech, Vanderbilt, Florida, Louisville, Houston, Iowa State, Utah State, UConn, Gonzaga, Virginia, NC State, Iowa, North Carolina, Villanova, Michigan State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Kansas, Miami, Florida, St. Mary's, Kentucky, St. Louis, Nebraska, and St. John's. Now let's have some common sense here. Some of these teams obviously aren't national championship threats. No disrespect, Utah State. I love you, but I don't think you're a national championship threat. Same goes for Villanova, Miami, Florida, who have had really good years in year one under their respective new coaches. NC State, Iowa, probably not going to get there. So you can cut out some of these lists, but we're going to break it down even more. So this is our baseline we're going off of. Up next, 23 out of 24 champions have been inside the top 21 in adjusted offensive efficiency heading into the tournament. So, there's been a couple outliers in the past. Most notably, the most notable outlier was that Shabazz Napier, Kevin Ollie UConn team that was a 7 seed, kind of fluked. It was fluky compared to, the historic trends, and made it all the way and won the national championship over that 8-seeded Kentucky team. And 22 out of 24 champions have been inside the top 29 in adjusted defensive efficiency. So once again, pre-tournament, after the regular season, via the KenPom algorithm since it began. So there's only 10 teams that currently fit this. So we're already cutting it back pretty good. Usually there's about 12 to 16 teams that fit this. Right now, there's only 10. Like I said, there's a few that can come in. There's a few that could leave. So Purdue, very, very close on the on the inside. They're 29th in defense efficiency, which is the max that you can be, according to history, but they are second in offense efficiency. Michigan's inside the top 5 in both. Duke's inside the top 7 in both. Arizona's inside the top 8 in both. So they're all in good shape. Vanderbilt is 12th in offensive efficiency, 21st in defensive efficiency. I don't necessarily see Vanderbilt as a national championship threat. They're a good team. Probably not going to win the national championship. Florida's been on fire lately. 13th in offensive efficiency, 4th in defensive efficiency. They're a definite national championship threat. Louisville, I don't know. They haven't shown that they can beat any top-tier competitions. They're 0-8 inside of Quad 1A. However, they're 15th in offensive efficiency, 28th in defensive efficiency. They fit this criteria. And then your next 3 teams who were kind of in the conversation of the last 1 seed just until a couple days ago, Houston, Iowa State, and UConn all fit this criteria. UConn, 21st in offensive efficiency, so on the number, barely getting in. A few teams that were very close in this specific one, but were left out. Illinois has the number 1 offense in the country, however, 31st in defense, only 2 spots outside of that. Michigan State isn't quite there offensively. They're 36th in offensive efficiency, however, 6th in defensive efficiency. A few other just quick notable ones. Virginia is just outside on the offensive end. Who else? Alabama, Arkansas, a couple teams that you're probably going to see as top couple seeds. Nebraska in that conversation as well, not quite there. So a lot of notable teams here in the conversation, some notable teams outside the conversation. Let's keep it going. Now, here's the one that is the most popular one. It's the Week 6 AP poll, top 12. Every national champion over the past 21 years. It's been in the top 12 of the Week 6 AP poll. Whether you believe in this one or you don't, it is a trend, 21 straight years. Now, it was almost broken last year. Houston was not inside the top 12 of the Week 6 AP poll. Remember, they got off to a slow start last year in the Players Era Festival. They had a very good chance to win the national championship. Ended up losing in the championship game by 2, where they led a lot of the game. So it's kind of like, do you value it on, look, there's still preseason bias in terms of the Week 6 AP poll. And the preseason is basically, everyone's rankings is based on the talent that you have, the retention you have coming back, how well you did in the transfer portal, all the talent that you have, along with, giving these coaches a little bit of some boosts. And then it's also where they're starting to find into form, where, Week 6, we kind of know about these teams. Arizona was number 1 by Week 6. We saw what they could do. Michigan, they were on fire. We knew what they could do. Duke's obviously been solid. Iowa State was not a preseason. Were they top 20, maybe 17th or so in the preseason AP poll? They climbed all the way up to 4th. So it is how you did to that point, along with preseason bias. So whether you believe in it or not, that's kind of my rationale of it. But a couple of these teams have dropped off, most notably BYU, Louisville, Alabama. I don't think any of those are national championship contenders at this moment. So you got Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, Houston, Gonzaga, Michigan State, and then BYU, Louisville, and Alabama, like we talked about. So kind of keep in mind some teams that you're going to see on every single one of these graphics, as these teams fit the criteria to win the national championship. So here's your Week 12 AP poll. Moving on, another stat since 1989, so going way back, other than teams named UConn. So UConn is the one outlier in this exact graphic here. Only one national champion has not been a 3 seed or better. So like we said, we saw UConn win a national championship as a 7 seed a couple seasons ago, or, not a couple seasons ago, I guess. That was over 10 years ago now, 12 years ago. UConn as a 4 seed, just won it 3 seasons ago. They're the one team that always seems to do it as a higher seed. But outside of that, there's only been one national champion, not a top 3 seed. So here's your potential 3 seeds. And I expanded it out a little bit. To me, these are all the teams vying for top 3 seeds. Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and UConn are your 4 number 1 seeds right now. So we don't even have to include UConn as an outlier. They're already a number 1 seed. You're fighting for these next 2 and 3 seeds are going to be Iowa State, who's in good shape. Purdue, who just did lose last night to Michigan State, but they're still fine. Florida, Illinois, Kansas, Houston, Nebraska, Gonzaga, Michigan State, and Virginia. To me, those are the teams that have the potential to be a top 3 seed. You can maybe throw in the conversation someone like a Texas Tech, or if someone were to run the table and say the SEC tournament, like a Tennessee, Alabama, or Arkansas, could maybe get there. I'm sure there's a couple more teams I'm forgetting. But to me, right now, as it stands, like I said, we will update this once the regular season and conference tournaments are over, going into the tournament. So in between Selection Sunday, when the tournaments start. But these right now are your teams that are in good shape to be a top 3 seed. And then the final graphic that we will talk about, since 1998, 23 out of 27 national champions finished top 2 in their final conference standings. So this is based on the regular season. So here are your teams right now. A couple of them could fall off, which we'll talk about. Duke and Virginia, definitely your top 2 teams in the ACC. UConn and St. John's, definitely your top 2 teams in the Big East. Moving on to the Big 12, Arizona has a 2-game lead. However, we have 4 teams tied for second, so I included every single one of them because this does include ties. Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech, all in tied for second. Moving on to the Big 10, you got Michigan, who's a tier above everyone else, and then Michigan State, Illinois, and Nebraska all tied. Next, in the SEC, Florida, right there as your top team in the SEC, and then Arkansas and Alabama in tied for second behind that. I did also include Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Sorry, St. Louis. Sorry, Miami of Ohio. Probably not going to win the national championship. Really fun stories, but I did kind of just cut this off just as, true teams that could actually win the national championship. So keep all these teams in mind. Here is your national championship tiers. Tier 1 fits every single category. We have 6. Normally, like last year, going into the NCAA tournament after Selection Sunday, we only had 3 teams that fit this. It was Duke, it was Florida, and it was Auburn. So 3 of your 1 seeds. When you looked at missed 1 category last year, it was Houston. Remember, we talked about that. Only category that they missed was that Week 12 AP poll. To me, that's the flukiest. So I like to kind of note that one, which we'll talk about here with Florida in a second. But to me, this graphic kind of shows the story of the season. I think we have more national championship threats this season than we had last season. Last season, to me, it was kind of obvious it was going to be a 1 seed. Those 4 teams were better than everyone else. The season before, it was kind of UConn, Purdue and Houston, as they were the three teams that were by far the best teams in the country. And Houston, lost Jamal Shead, but Purdue and UConn made the national championship. UConn won the national championship last year. Florida was a tier 1 team, but like we said, Houston was a tier 2 team. This year, we have more teams that I think can win the national championship than in previous seasons. So your tier 1 fits every category. We got Michigan, Duke, Arizona, who have been your top 3 teams all season. Houston's still there. And then Iowa State and UConn. So like we said, those teams that were vying for that last number 1 seed when the selection committee revealed their top seeds just about a week ago. So you got 6 teams right now that fit every category. Not saying one can drop out. Like we said, UConn barely fits the criteria in offensive efficiency. So keep that in mind. Misses one category. The first one I will note is Florida, because like we said, they're the only one that they do not fit the criterion is that Week 12 AP poll. To me, the flukiest one. So if you want to include them as a national championship tier 1, definitely would not disagree with that. They look fantastic right now. Only missing one category also is Purdue, Gonzaga, and Michigan State. So like we said, Michigan State actually doesn't fit that really specific graphic where it's top 21 and 29 at KenPom. I'll pull this up just so you remember. Michigan State not quite there on the offensive end. So kind of keep that one in mind as well. And then missing 2 categories, Illinois, not quite there on the defensive end, like we said. Louisville, who I genuinely don't really see as a national championship threat. They can beat anyone because they can shoot the lights out, but not quite there. Virginia, who's been playing very well, to me kind of screams like Final Four threat, not quite national championship threat. Kansas is going to be a popular pick to win the national championship. Now, if you want to say these numbers are a little bit fluctuated because Darren Peterson hasn't played that much, I'll listen to it, but they do miss 2 categories right now, as does Nebraska. We're all rooting for Nebraska to win at least one game in the NCAA tournament this season. So here's just a few notable teams that were left out. Alabama just not there on the defensive end. Texas Tech just in a rough situation with losing JT Top, and that obviously just hurts. Really sucks for Texas Tech. Vanderbilt, not quite there, even though we did say that they fit that one specific criteria, top 21 and 29. North Carolina, we'll see if Caleb Wilson can get back. Tennessee, Kentucky, St. John's was probably the most surprising one. I thought they would be inside, some of the top tiers as maybe missing 2 categories, maybe even just missing 1 category. They're not quite there. BYU, losing Richie Saunders, obviously going to hurt. Their ceiling is impacted by that by a lot. And then Arkansas, one of the best offenses in the country, but not quite there on the defensive end. So these are your national championship tiers as it stands right now based on stats, historical trends. There's a lot more historical trends that you can find. I'm sure a lot of other college basketball accounts are posting some of these. However, to me, these are the most realistic ones. I did include like the Week 12 AP poll one because, it's 21 out of 21 in the last 21 years. So you got to include it. But to me, these are the stats that actually mean something, what you have to be a realistic national championship contender. All right, that's it. Like I said, we're going to update this again after Selection Sunday, so be sure to come back for that. Subscribe to the show, turn on post notifications. Before heading out, follow us on Instagram where we'll be posting all this fun stuff at Bracket Science with 2 S's, and check out our website, bracketscience.weebly.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday with a podcast recapping the weekend. Be sure to come back for that. Everyone enjoy March, as it'll be the next time I talk to you. Till then, take care.